Thank you for the time. So I'm Jerry Riley. As David said, I was Chief Technology Officer in the early days of HDR UK. I'm now Technologist in Residence. That's one of those titles that doesn't give you a clue to what I do, which is just as well, because that way the boss doesn't know what it is I'm not doing. I'm going to be ably assisted by Shashil, who is interim CTO for HDR UK, and Shashil is going to do a live demo. We kept it till the end of the day, so we've done the PowerPoint. This is the point where we really see whether things are working or not. So, there's been quite a lot of discussion already. Paola saved me some of this by talking through quite a lot of the capabilities of the gateway, and other people have touched on it as well. So what I really wanted to go through was the journey, because the journey matters, because that shapes how we've developed, how we're going to go around requirements, engagement with the public, and building a vibrant community to take the gateway forward. So I'm going to quickly, and it's a long day, isn't it? So I'm going to quickly go through that journey. So we started back really building out of the life sciences sector deal in 2017. And that started us out on a journey that has been a 4-year journey through dialogue and discussion, the roadshow David touched on, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a moment, building out and testing our ideas, so important as we go through this, with the minimum viable product, through to the gateway we have today. We had some early thoughts and ideas, and this was a slide we put together in 2018, very early in the days of HDR UK. And it was picking out what we thought would be the key things we needed to work on. And what's really interesting for me is the words have changed, but actually the journey we're on, and it's still a journey, these aren't solved problems, they've improved. I think we've made a lot of strides over the last 4 years, but we've still got a lot more to do, was around discovery. How do we make health data sets, health relevant data sets more discoverable? How do we improve the access experience? The access experience for researchers, the access experience for the data custodians. How do we flow that through the science? And how do we disseminate the outputs? And how do we make that an end-to-end journey that is consistent for the researcher, for the data custodians, but also for our publics and patients, so that they can see the value of research on health data. We've taken an approach right the way from the very beginning, and there's probably a few people who recognize the back of their heads, of looking at this from a design thinking approach. Looking at the way we approach the ideas, the requirements, and building out from design rather than technology. I'm a technologist, but we've got to be use case led throughout. And that's the approach we will continue to flow through in future years as well. David mentioned the roadshow, and yeah, regrettably, we didn't come to Birmingham. This would have been a lovely venue. But we took the team out, and this wasn't just Gateway, we were looking at the hubs, the Alliance as well, in a journey across the 4 nations of the UK to look at the requirements, make sure that this was an inclusive approach, and that we really understood what the nuances were across all 4 nations of the UK. And that's something we'll be doing again and again. Obviously, been a little bit challenging for the last 2 years, but that engagement, that person-to-person engagement really matters. As also was mentioned earlier, we weren't building from scratch. Some of these ideas and approaches had already been tested out. And again, that's something that's so important. We've got to continue to build and work from what's already out there. We're not looking to reinvent the wheel. We're not looking to start afresh. We've got to build and assemble from existing thoughts and capabilities. And the Health Data Finder, whilst it's stalled at 18 data sets, and in fact it was on a point of going a little bit beyond that, showed that there was an approach that could work for making data more discoverable. So, taking on that idea, we started out by building the minimum viable product. Quite a rapid run-through in collaboration with IBM, Oxford University, and Metadata Works, building out a way of testing the thought that we could build an extensible platform that could be delivered through open source that would provide a tool, a portal that we could collaborate around initially for data discovery, but that would also allow us a journey to improve the access experience right through to dissemination. We took an approach for the MVP that was fundamentally open, and as we took the approach through to the next stage, we also wanted that to be an open approach, and we took some quite novel approaches. So selecting how we'd approach the build-out of the gateway as you see it today, through the phase 2 of the gateway, we went through an open procurement process. And we had a lot of fun. I'm not sure, and there's at least one of the participants in here today, not sure they had a lot of fun, but we actually took our top list of 3, our shortlisted 3, through an 8-week agile process of building out some of the ideas, testing some of the ideas in a real live agile environment where we actually modified some of the requirements as we went through to see how they responded. Really good test out to ensure that we could work together, we could collaborate together. And just as we got to the end of that, we were sitting in a room in the Wellcome Trust. We had just got to the point where we knew who our selected partner was going to be for the build-out, which was PA. COVID. So like a number of other people have talked about today, we started the real journey of building out phase 2 by suddenly being on our settees, sitting there staring at that square screen, trying to build out a partnership, to refine requirements, work on the customer experience, while we weren't in a position to meet. We weren't in a position to draw up on those whiteboards pretty pictures. But that was also really successful. We showed that that was possible, and also, whilst we'd all probably like there never to have been COVID, it also was a forcing function. It made us think about some of the ideas. It made us think about what could we do with the gateway in collaboration with projects such as National Core Studies to really surface the key data sets that were going to support the COVID work, the reporting that was going forward, and that could rapidly make the gateway a valuable tool post-COVID, but also whilst we were in the depths of the pandemic. I don't doubt that without COVID, we wouldn't have moved as fast as we did. It was a forcing function, and it now has put us in a better place than I think we would have been had we not had COVID. So we refocused. We focused on many of the requirements. But it did push us through at, ooh, I've lost my slides. Okay, good. And it's taken us to a place today where we've shifted some of what we are doing. When we started off this journey, we started off a journey that was really focused on data sets. And actually, partly by some thoughts that came in from our partners at PA, we rapidly saw that actually data sets were only one of the class of things that people wanted to look at. They wanted to understand tools. They wanted to have a sight through to papers, to what projects were being run. And therefore, we shifted what we were doing to have a much broader approach. We worked to look at some of the integration in with the cohort discovery work that's been mentioned by a couple of speakers today, and more recently, to work on things like the data use registers, which are really quite key to the end-to-end transparency that is there to support the public view of research. So how do we move on? There's so much more to do. As we look out for the next 5 years, and Shashir will touch on where we are in a bit more depth in a moment, we want to build on some of the things that we actually saw as important really early on. And in some cases, we got to them partly. In some cases, we had to take pragmatic views during the pandemic. But we want to build out a set of services that are there, that can be reused, that we can provide out, and we will use within the gateway, but we will also provide out as services to the broader community, including support for federated analysis. As I mentioned earlier, we really want the capability to be a community-led capability. We don't want to build the gateway alone. We want to build the gateway as an open source, sustainable community. So that will be a key focus for us over the coming years. We want to build it on capability that already exists. So we want to reuse capability, collaborate, assemble, and only build where that's absolutely essential. And we want to continue to that for it to be use case led. We have an ambition that we've discussed in the HDR UK plans for the next 5 years of what we want the impact to be looking out, 2027. One of the use cases we really wanted day one is end-to-end transparency from discovery to dissemination in a way that is not only understandable by the publics and patients, not only gives them a view and a positive feel of trust, but makes them advocates for health data science. We want them to be involved in all aspects of this development. We want them to be involved in all stages of our governance and in our active development processes and approaches. For the research community, we want to be able to make sure that we have available a set of enabling services that support the whole journey, the access request management, the data discovery, but also out into federated analytics. Not to be the deliverers of those federated analytics capabilities, but to be enablers for those through the provision of APIs and services. And as I said, to build out and establish a community that will take the development of the gateway forward for the future. Just want to pause for a moment. This has been a very big exercise, lots of people involved, and a lot of them in the room. So I wanted to thank everybody who's contributed in the gateway. That's as users, critical friends, people who've sent us requirements, people who've sent us bugs. It's been really important. I also wanted to thank the list of people who've actively contributed into the development across the PA team, the IBM team, the HDR UK team, the University of Nottingham team. I put together a list. It came to 68 people in the end. And it's a journey that's going to continue. We have things already underway. We are already actively looking at what the journey needs to be to really do federated metadata management, to really support the onboarding work across the 4 nations of the UK, and to be able to federate and syndicate that metadata to other people as well. We want to really build out the cohort discovery work. It's an exciting point, it's proven its utility, but there's much, much further to go. Access request management, many strides forward, particularly with tremendous work from the Alliance led by David and Paola, but also all of the Alliance members. There's much more we can do there, but I hope, at least I believe, the more harmonized approaches available today have already brought great strides forwards. And as I said, we want to provide a set of services that enable expansion into areas such as federated analytics. Built from an open source model and very much making sure we remain aligned with the community, we remain aligned with other efforts, and in particular, very closely aligned with the work that Claire discussed earlier, that is looking to build out a very exciting strategy for transformation of the NHS's digital research capability. And with that, I'm just going to step aside for a minute, welcome my colleague Shashil, and Shashil will take over and do a short demo.
Thanks, Jerry. I realize we're towards the end, so I'm not going to run through everything. So hopefully I can switch the video. Whilst we wait, just to let you know, I'll just be going through and again, I know you might not heard of this website from HDR UK. It's one of those niche type things that we do, but it's important culmination of all of your work. Yes, this is a technology website that hosts a lot of metadata around all the resources, but it actually represents you, what you've done through the work of curating the content on the website, the research that's been produced, and everything else as well. So if you go to healthdatagateway.org, this is the page you would be presented. You've got mechanism to search, but you get basic statistics about the content within the gateway. So you've got data sets, tools, data uses. And the idea was to bring all of these things together. So one of the driving use cases in our design thinking was, if you were prescribed a particular drug, you want to know where in the NICE guidelines it appears, what research papers was used to produce those guidelines, who wrote those papers, what tools was used in those papers, what cohorts was used as part of that analysis, what data sets was used, and navigate that graph in its entirety and come in at various different points. We're not there yet. We're building towards curating that content to be able to build that graph. So that's the whole point of trying to collect all this information. You can browse by themes, you can browse by various different collections. You can see some of your hub level information about what you've been doing as part of that and what's new as part of that as well. You can search for various things. Again, I'm just going to search for COVID as an example. And you can and it'll run through and running against the database. It'll see all the different content that's available. You can click on any one, so I'm just going to click on one example. You can see all of the different metadata around it. You can see technical metadata. I'm not going to spend too much time, but feel free to browse at your heart's content for all of these different parts of the website. You can also request access to it. It gives you a bit of guidance for this. In this example, I just want to highlight the inquiry form. So you can submit an inquiry to say, I'd like to access this data and these are the purposes as well. You can access various different information around usage data. So what's happening on National Core Studies work, what the gateway releases are, and various other forms of research. We've talked about cohort discovery, and I think that's a very exciting part of the gateway, which allows you to do detailed searches deep within the metadata. Right now, all you saw was the high-level metadata that was collected as part of the data collection aspect of it. So if you click on advanced search, for example, it gives you a set of capabilities that allows you to do cohort discovery, but also search on data utility. This is where somebody has gone through and annotated how useful those data sets are. In this example, I'm just going to show you cohort discovery. Now, bear in mind, this is a tool for researchers, and this gives you that presentation from Phil, where the way they brought all these different pieces of technologies together to be able to run analysis. Again, I'm going to do a fun query. Hopefully this works. Because we're in summer, I just thought maybe we could search for able to access garden would be one of the queries, and maybe female and male as part of the query. And this is how easy it is to build your query. So I'm looking for female and male subjects who have access or reported that they have access to a garden. I can do and or queries, for example. So I swapped over that. I can include, exclude various different variables if I wanted to. But in this example, I'm just going to hit run. And what's happening when the moment I hit run, is this query stored on the gateway. All of the different data custodians who have our software installed is downloading the query, running it against the databases, collecting and aggregating all the results, and those results would come back to the system. And there we go, we've got access to the results. And in this example, I've lost my mouse, is 67,000 subjects that have access. Now the point of this is, well, that's well and good, it gives you an age breakdown as well, and also the gender distribution as well. And I can see all of the different data sets that have responded to this query. In this example, Generation Scotland, 24,000, track COVID. And if I wanted to dig a little bit deeper, I can refine my query and fire it again, and you can start building. You can see a question like, I want to do research on patients between 18 to 35, not smoking, not pregnant, with asthma and diabetes or comorbidities, with genomic information and lab results and imaging, is a query that we could perform. And once you know which data set has all of those variables and has the statistical power, importantly, for you to be able to undertake that research, you can submit a 5-stage form data access request. That's the point. And that is an incredibly transformative set of capabilities that researchers would be able to use. You can use this for clinical trial recruitment, identifying your patients in those data sets and then following that up as well. So I just wanted to give you that example. I'm just going off-piste a little bit. I just wanted to show you the API. Oh, sorry. healthdatagateway.org/API docs. Hopefully that'll work. And point out that the gateway is not just a website. It is a set of standards and APIs that allows you to reuse every single thing we have on the gateway. You can integrate it into your systems. You can send us information through these APIs, and we want to build a whole integrated solution that people can use and reuse as you go through the entire development process. And of course, all of this has been open source from day one. github.com/HDRUK, you'll be able to see all of the different results. And again, the whole point, if I search for COVID again, I'll just search for cancer this time, just my last bit. I can see cancer, there's 92 different data sets, there's a couple of tools, we need to add more content there. The uses, data uses, which allows me to show, all of the different research studies that's been created as part of this. So in this example, this is from CPRD, using various different data sources, who's run that research, what was the project name, the summary, what data sets were used, what setting was it, and so on and so forth. So you're starting to see the joining of the dots of various different things. So data uses was one example, and we were starting to build together everything else, all the collection that's available, all the educational courses, papers, of course, and all the people. We want to start building, and with your help, the entire ecosystem-wide view. We don't want to be the only gateway in town. We want to start building, using the APIs and data source, an open community of trying to build this network. And with that, I will stop and take questions, perhaps?
Yep, we'll take questions.
Yeah.
Questions and thoughts on what you would like next. So, have we got roving mics?
And tell us when we're wrong as well.
volunteer to do a row with a mic.
Hi there.
Hey, John.
Hi.
Hey, John.
Can I export real data from that, or is it just the metadata?
It's just the metadata. No, you don't get access to the data at all. You still have to submit a data access request to be able to access the data.
So if you're asking what to do next, how likely is it that that will become some sort of a...
I don't think that'll happen in the near future unless we get and completely open data sets, to be honest. The sensitivity is just not there to be able to do that. But one of the things that's hidden behind the scenes of this, which is important, which is critically Phil's work as part of this, and Emily Jefferson, who's also in the room, is the incredible amount of data engineering that's gone into the process of converting that data into OMOP and then loading that in. You cannot underestimate. Now, I know this is boring to most of you. Science is the important bit and patient data is the important bit, but this is the boring level of technology work that needs to be done to actually realize, Claire Bloomfield's vision of building a network of integrated TREs to be able to function nationally. It's the unsexy, boring stuff that needs to be done, unfortunately.
Hello? Yes, I was going to ask, so I was wondering if what I saw, this is Neil Walker over
yes,
here.
hi.
I wondered if what I saw on your display was actually the start of you showing a distribution of the data at least, even though you can't show the real data. Is that what I was seeing? Because that's what people need to know as well. Not only do I have a male or a female, but what sort of age are they? What are their other characteristics? What are the other comorbidities you might want to see? So it's the distributions of variables that make it interesting, which I think I may have been beginning to see. Is that the case?
Yeah, you're beginning to see that. And bear in mind, we don't have full 774 data set coverage here. We're just beginning on that journey. But yes, you're starting to see an age distribution and a gender distribution that we can start picking out. Things that are non-sensitive, especially to be able to make your design decision as part of your research. But yeah, all of that is made available. And we can also go into the kind of conditions, the counts, the conditions that's already there, diagnosis codes, medications, and so on. So.
The intent is that instead of just doing the discovery over the metadata, you're in a position to check that the characteristics of the various data sets actually meet the needs for the study you're considering. So absolutely, Neil, that it is getting to a granularity that I think is game-changing potentially, in that you can see the characteristics, you can dive into those characteristics, and you can see the different data sets that might meet your requirements prior to you putting in an access request. So if you look at it and it looks on the surface as it's great, and then you see a distribution that doesn't meet what you're really looking for, you haven't wasted the effort to go through that protracted request, and you can hone in on some other data set that may be better suited to what you particularly want to do. So it's early days. It is all around getting great enablement and getting more people tied up to the cohort discovery work. But ultimately, I think it saves wasted request time on the researcher and saves wasted request time on the data controllers. So I think it becomes a game-changing capability once we reach critical mass.
And just to add, perhaps, sorry, Jerry, data custodians typically already do this today. Hubs do this already through an email, really. Somebody emails you and says, do you have this kind of data? And you go back and forth with the answer. This tool is an enabler for the data custodians to be able to answer some of the easy to answer questions. There will be complex questions in terms of data linkages, which is higher value, which may be something that we could use to be able to move towards a higher value question and answer session rather than having these kind of simple questions answered by tool. Yes.
Yeah, we'll take one more.
Yeah. One more.
Hi, Liz Dobson, IBD Registry, part of Gut Reaction. We've looked a lot at making data discoverable, but what is in place or plans for making open source routines discoverable, developer communities, GitHub, etc.?
Yeah, so some of that is already online. So we have GitHub already. We have a forum as well. Now, one of the things we need to encourage, and this is partly due to the pandemic, everybody got into Slack and Teams and Zoom mode. I don't know where the mute button is here, but my point is we need to start encouraging those interactions, both at the developer level, as from a software engineering point of view, at the data custodian level, at the data science and data engineering level, at the governance level, and also at the political level. So if you were to build that network of TREs that enable research to happen, especially in the health data ecosystem, we need conversations at all of those different levels. And I don't mean that in a hierarchy. I mean those as separate communities that needs to come together to formulate. Because if you're looking at a team of team science, going back to Phil's point, each team needs to have conversations within them to be able to formulate the right strategy, develop code, develop data engineering practices, develop governance structures. And fundamentally, TREs is not about the technology of the data, it's actually about good data governance, enabling good data governance, which means we need to bring all of that together. Now, the best way to do that, we need your help, right? We've tried the forum, we've tried GitHub, there are various other sources of having meetings through Zoom and everything else. What works for you? What do you think we need to do more of? Are these workshops the right approach? Do we need to have deep dive mini workshops? Again, I'll throw it back to you because we don't know what the right answer is. We need your help to be able to formulate those right answers.
Okay. Rather than right. So last thing, just a big round of applause to Jerry and Cecile and for a demo that actually worked.